Today I'm speaking with Al Jones. We're going to talk about Al's journey from bad to excellent credit. Welcome, Al.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me this morning.
Sure. We've been playing interview tag for a while, but I'm very glad that you're here today. I really appreciate you.
And again,
go ahead.
Again, thank you again for the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. It's my pleasure. So we're going to talk about money. This is a big topic, but tell me first about you.
Well, again, I am Al Jones, and I'm a personal finance author and game developer. I'm a current resident and native of Phoenix, Arizona. After years of making poor financial decisions and thinking it was the norm, I decided to take action, make a change in my life, and document the process along the way. I'm here now to share with you about my journey from having bad credit, around 600 or so FICO score, to a perfect 850 FICO score, and I'm ready to talk. Let's go.
Wow. So I was intrigued by, your topic, that topic of finance, because this show caters to solo moms, single divorce, widowed moms, and finance has often been a problem, money management and finance typically being, one of those problems for solo moms. So I'm really interested in that. Buying a house, getting a car, that kind of thing, keeping your credit where it needs to be so you cannot look like a loser. I'm sorry, I'm saying it because it's happened to me. So I can say it freely. So tell me, what bring you to this topic? How did you move? How did you start from one place, and what was that like, and ended up at the good place, the 850 credit score?
Well, it really started when I was a young child, and after my mother and father divorced, things took a turn for the worst financially in our home. And I think a lot of it may have to do with my mother trying to raise 3 children, on her own, trying to work in multiple jobs. And with that, she was working multiple jobs, and I think in her frustration, that got the best of her, if you will. And she took out, the frustration, the anger. And so by just buying stuff, whether it's dresses, hats, purses, that will, ease the pain. Well, eventually that stuff kind of catches up with you.
Right.
So what was happening was, once it started catching up with her, the phone started ringing, bill collectors started calling, saying, hey, where's your mom? And back then, 70s or so, bill collectors, that whole industry it was like the wild, wild west. They call you and they just scream at you, regardless of your age. Scream at you, hey, you need to pay here, you need to pay this, you need to pay that. So most of the time, mom was away working the multiple jobs, and I'm, for the most part, at home oftentimes with my younger brother, fielding the phone calls that were coming in. And I was a young teenager, maybe 13, 14 or so, picking up the phone, and the phone calls were coming so frequently, we didn't have voicemail, at that time. So phone calls were coming in, and I would answer the phone. They would start screaming, saying, where's your mom? She needs to pay. And I did not allow them to hear me cry while I was on the phone with them. After it was over, I would cry and try to figure out, why are they being so mean to my mother?
Right.
What's going on? What's going on? I would take all the information down. And then finally, after taking the information down, relaying it to my mother, I began honing my negotiation skills of repayment. Mom, the bill collector said you owe, say, $500. She says, well, I can't pay $500. I can pay $250. Okay, so I take a note of that. Bill collector calls back the next day, most frequently, and it's like, okay, well, hi, Mr. Smith. This is Al Jones, Mildred Jones's son. And I spoke with her when she got home from work. And granted, I'm a little, young teenager, 13, 14 or so, doing all these negotiations. Well, Mr. Smith, I spoke with my mother when she, returned home, and she can't pay that $500 that you were talking about, but she does have $250. And would that be okay? Pause. Yeah, okay. Well, make sure she pays, the $250 by this date. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will make sure that she pays that $250 on, whatever day. And after a while, you start getting good at it.
Right.
And the bill calls, you start lessening. You don't get as many, and they know that you are a responsible young man, and you're relaying the information. You're willing to work with them. You're not totally disregarding the phone calls, and you're just dealing with it head on. So I got that skill, moved forward in life, left home, and after all that, I mean, I thought that was the norm. Well, that's how it's supposed to be. Living a hard time, like good times on the show. They're supposed to be rough. So fast forward to the military and so on. I fell into the same trap. I was in the military, was away from home, for the first time, full time. And I started getting sad and lonely and just fell into the same trap, gambling, and, had multiple divorces and multiple losses of employment, unemployment, identity theft, and again, just fell into that same hole. And then finally one day I said to myself, this has got to stop now. This is insane.
Yes,
you go to places and you ask, well, okay, I would like to buy this, and they run your credit report, and it's just insanely low. And they look at you like, yeah, sure, okay. Unless you want to put down an insane amount for a deposit, just go.
Yeah.
Just get because it's not going to happen. So that just got really old, really fast. So I decided to take action and generate my credit reports and scores from each of the 3 separate credit bureaus, the main ones, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Generated my credit reports and scores, looked at them, evaluated them. And this was all during watching multiple DVDs, listening to multiple CDs, reading multiple books. And in that process, there were multiple books and multiple resources that were out there, but the majority of the information that I found, it was filled with fluff. Somebody wants you to watch 3 or 4 DVDs on how to improve your credit. Somebody wants you to read 300 pages of a book to improve your credit. That, I thought, that was insane. The Dave Ramseys and the others that were out there, they just filled a bunch of stuff with a bunch of fluff. So I decided, after reading through all that stuff and listening to the DVDs, watching the DVDs, listening to the CDs, and reading off the fluffy books, I learned, at least for myself, that the content that I needed was about a chapter in length, about 100 books or so in length. So I decided, all right, let me write a book so others don't have to go through the same path and trying to figure out what's going on. Let me write a very condensed book, under 100 pages or so, and document the process along the way. So along the way, clean out my credit reports and scores, blah, blah, blah. 15 years later, I was able to finally achieve the 850 FICO score. And once I finally got to that point, it was very rewarding physically, because you've accomplished something that you had wanted to do for years. You've broken the cycle of poor financial decision making, and knowing that it does not have to continue unless you want it to continue.
Yes.
So, here I am.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with me. And I wanted to go back to, the problem with the way we think sometimes, because it's all a mindset thing, that, we have this brokenness because of divorce, or we left raising children alone. And we do 2 things. One, we either stick our head in the sand and pretend, the problems aren't there, especially the money problems, right? Because it's overwhelming, right? And the other thing we do, we try to make up for the loss, trying to buy our kids everything we think they need, And so that's something I wanted to touch on, because it is a mindset problem that we develop, and then years later we realize that it wasn't a good thing, because now we've passed it on to our kids. Fortunately, you had the presence of mind to say, wait a minute now, something's not right, and you work through it. So I congratulate you for that, for breaking that cycle. So
thank you.
Okay, sure. So we covered the cycle of financial management. Thank you for that. And I wanted to ask you also, this one part. How did you feel when you were rejected for credit? What does that feel like?
How does that feel like? That feels like if you recall the first time that you were at a dance, okay, or the first time you found that special someone that you thought was just it. You approached that person and said, let's go back to the dance. You asked that person to dance, and they looked at you like, no. That feeling of rejection, that is what it feels like. In summary, if you could summarize it, that is it.
Yeah, that's a good example, actually. Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you for that. All right. So, what are some of the examples of the harmful financial effects of having bad credit and these high risk credit activities that I talked about just now, and others, buying too much, buying what we can't afford, and trying to keep up with other people.
Trying to keep up with with the Joneses.
Yeah.
So in that whole cycle, the social media, TV, it just kind of pushes excess. People trying to sell products, so I get that. However, if you are of mind and you feel sad, you feel depressed, and they're playing off all that, and that, well, if I buy this new car, if I buy this, these new rims for my wheels, for my, car, then, or new dress, new hat, then suddenly all my problems will go away. No, it's not.
Right.
Your problems aren't going away. When you buy this product, it's not going to magically, turn your life around. It's to some degree, it's like for those that golf, every so often, a new golfing club comes out, and suddenly if you buy this new club, you're going to hit another 15, 20 yards. Okay? Okay. So you've got some issues like that you've got to deal with. So the other thing is when you go to purchase a new product and they generate your credit report, the whole rejection, you're going to pay higher interest rates when you want to get a loan. And when your credit is generated and it's low, then people kind of look at you, especially when you're applying for a job. You may even get rejected when you're applying employment somewhere, especially if the job has to do with finances in some way, whether if you're an accountant, you're a bookkeeper, an office clerk that deals with finance clerk or something like that, accounting clerk. If they say, oh, well, we're going to generate your credit report, and you're thinking, oh, gee, I haven't paid all my bills in, months. Then they generate your credit report. It's like, okay, you think I'm going to trust you with my money if you can't control your own house?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No. You may have a bunch of degrees, but if your money isn't right and you're dealing with money, it's not going to happen here. I'm not going to take that risk.
Right.
And that's the other thing. It's pretty much, for the most part, it's risk. People are evaluating how much they can risk and trust, how much they can trust you to do a certain thing. Can they trust you to make your bill, pay your bills on time? Well, if you have a record of not doing so, then again, how can I trust you to do something for me?
Yes, that's true. And I mean, it may not necessarily be fair to judge somebody by their credit because you don't know their life, right? But the fact remains.
But they need a fast. Unfortunately, in this short attention span society, we don't have the time.
Right.
We don't make the time to go through the ideal scenario. Well, let me sit down and talk. Everybody wants a new job. Everybody wants a job. Well, I don't have time. I don't want to make the time to go through this laundry list. I need something very fast to do a quick evaluation and weed out who I want and who I don't want. And that is one of the easier ways to weed out candidates.
Yes, I understand that. I would just, pointing out the fact that, it's the same with insurance. You really can't get good quality insurance if you have bad credit, so,
right.
So, it's one of those things you got to pay attention to. But I want to get back to the mindset because we talk about that a lot affecting our decision. And nowhere is a bad mindset, is a wrong mindset more dangerous and devastating than in how we manage financing, right?
So it seems.
Yeah.
So it seems.
So tell me, what resources are available to help one take control of their finances?
One is you can obviously purchase my book, which is on Amazon.
And what's the title?
Okay, the title is My Journey from Bad to Excellent Credit.
Okay.
And it's available on Amazon as a paperback. It's available on Amazon Kindle as well as an audiobook.
Oh, cool.
So
okay.
you can, and here's a copy of the book.
There you go. All right.
Thought I'd do that little plug. So again, My Journey from Bad to Excellent Credit. It's a short read, under 100 pages. And in the book, I talk about my journey from my childhood to moving up to 848, around 846, 848 or so, is what the score was when the book was published. And after the book was published, a few years or so later, then I was able to achieve the 850. So in the book, I talk about my journey, and you will find in the book, I have sectioned off parts of the book to where after you read it, it's like a workbook to where you can take notes of what you read, and that way you can share the content with others.
Yeah.
Just kind of pass it along.
Right.
So that's one of the ways. The main thing you can do is to purchase the book. The other thing is you can go to each of the 3 separate credit bureaus, Equifax.com, Experian.com, and TransUnion.com. Go to each of those 3 separate credit bureaus and order your credit report and score from each of the 3 separates. You're going to run into a situation where you'll likely see some sort of advertisement on the site where it says, get 3 in 1 or 2 for the price. Don't do that, because what you need to do is you need to order them from each of them separately, because once you order your credit reports and score, you're going to get a confirmation transaction number of some sort. That comes in handy when you need to dispute what is on that. So let's say you order your all 3, you bought into the 3 in 1 from Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, but you bought them all from Experian. Well, if you need to dispute something from TransUnion, TransUnion is going to ask you for a confirmation number.
Yeah.
So if you order them from Experian and you're talking to TransUnion, they're going to say, well, that's not in our numerical sequence. You're going to have to buy one from us. So then you wasted money, and you've got to go back and order from them separately.
Right.
So order from each of them separately. Most of them, from my understanding, you can order online, download a PDF copy of it, review it, and then dispute everything online. Look at the address, make sure the address is correct. If the addresses aren't correct, even in the slightest, contact them, say, hey, this is not my correct address, clean that up, remove that. So once you finally get through cleaning all that up, then what you can do is do what they call a credit freeze, and that will help prevent other bad actors, if you will, from tapping in and generating new credit. So don't do the freeze until you make sure that everything is nice and clean, nice and clear. So what I did is, along the way, generating my credit reports and scores, I do a cleanup, and then I generate another one, see how it is advanced. And sometimes you will find that, especially if bills have gone to collections, sometimes companies, collection agencies, they will buy the paper per se, they will buy the debt. So let's say if your account number was 893 and then it was purchased by another company, it may be 893-2 kind of thing. So look for those similarities when you're doing your credit report, and don't be surprised if the debt was purchased by somebody else. So there's all kind of things that are out there, but the big thing is purchase a credit. That will help purchase my book. That will kind of get you into the mindset of what you need to do. Then again, generate your credit reports and scores from each of the 3 separate credit bureaus. And hey, if you want to contact me, I'll be more than willing to provide some additional guidance.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we'll put the name of the book and your contact in the show notes so people could get in touch with you if they want to. Yeah?
Sounds good.
Thank you, Al. What's Al grateful for today?
I am grateful to be able to say that on December 30th, I will be retiring at the young age of 55. Woohoo!
Yes.
So I turned 55 on December 29th. Happy birthday, upcoming
Awesome.
birthday to
Yeah.
me.
Happy birthday.
And yeah, so I am a desktop computer hardware and software service and support technician for the government. And again, I'm able to retire on the day after my birthday, and I am more than excited. So that is what I am truly grateful for.
Awesome. That's absolutely awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for coming and talking to us about money. Anything else? Well, I'm going to ask you for this because I always ask, give me one piece of advice for a single mom, and you're probably familiar with this, who is going through financial difficulty right now, other than what you've shared before.
The big thing I would like to share is that you are not alone in this process.
Amen.
That's it.
Yeah.
You're not alone, and I'm here to help you out.
Okay. Thank you very much, Al Jones, for coming and speaking with us today.
My pleasure.
Sure.